Yeah, we're back. My name is Nick Osgood, here for another yard tour. It's been about 9 months since I did the last one in September. Today is July 25th of 2025, and I think I'm going to start doing these like once a year. Again, mostly to give myself something to look at so I know what's changing with my plans and what has actually changed in the yard, and just to kind of keep a record of things. And then if you, dear viewer, are interested in this, you're welcome to tag along. So I'm just going to go through and kind of talk ad nauseum, I bet, about everything I can think of. The last one was like 22 minutes long. I'm going to try to stick to that to some degree, but I have a lot more plant life that I'm interested to show you this time. So maybe we'll extend the runtime a little bit. I'm going to more or less stick to the same path that I did on the last video so that it's easy to compare. So we started here in the front yard. Essentially nothing has changed. You can see that we have over this way and over here, a full-blown infestation of this stilt grass. It really is a solid carpet of color, but it seems to just choke out essentially everything else. So we're missing out on a lot of kind of native meadow space here, because the stilt grass is just completely, look at that. It's just completely conquered the yard. But we're working on it. I've got sections that I'm taking out, and I intend to do this front yard this year. So we'll see. I mentioned these trees in my last run. We've got this dogwood here, a white oak here. Last time I didn't know what this was, but I'm pretty sure it's a black cherry now. You can look up there. It's still not doing too hot, so it will be getting removed, which the other trees will be quite happy about. But one thing I did do to these trees, and I recommend that everyone take a look at their yards and see if this is going to be a necessary thing. Usually when they build houses, there is so much disruption of the earth that a lot of the soil, and especially if you're in the south like me, is clay, gets packed up around the trunks of the trees, and it starts to stifle them. It doesn't allow the trees to respirate properly. It makes water sit up along the trunk, and it just generally can be a real mess and problem. I recommend that you go on Reddit to the arborist subreddit and see how many examples of bad root flares that there are and how to fix it. So I've been doing that to many of my trees. Here's the excavation of my white oak. If you compare it to the previous video, you can see, the soil was literally, up to that line last year. And so I have really revealed, the beginnings of a nice root flare. I'm going to be doing this to all the trees in my yard that need it, but I'm going to be trying to do it incrementally so that I'm not just digging things up like some kind of crazy person. You can see that really looks nice now. It's a pretty healthy white oak. It's got great form, so I'm excited for this thing to come into its own. It'll be very cool. So that got the treatment. The other big tree that got the treatment was this pine. You'll see in the last video that I had some retaining walls and stuff here that the previous owner had installed. They were choking this bad boy out, so we removed everything, started to regrade this front slope a little bit, and just look at the root flare on that pine. This is a eastern white pine. I'm not going to say how old it is because I honestly have no idea, but like maybe 30 or 40 years sounds pretty good. Maybe 50. It's pretty big. Who's really to say though? I cannot tell without chopping it down, which we're not going to be doing. So I'll step over to this front section. Here's some of the new things. I've opened up a small paddock for my trees in training here in the front, because we get pretty decent full sun, which is a rare thing in the woods. So this is right now inside this little fence. We've got mostly Hinoki cypress here. A couple different cultivars of that. Nothing really special, but stuff, like I said, that's just all in need of some good growing. So it's out here getting water all the time, getting that full sun. These are two bald cypress that I have. This is a native species to the south that has damn near been eliminated, along with the eastern red cedar. I can't find them really anywhere in the woods, especially not mature examples. And so one of my goals for the next several years is to start putting these back. I'm going to start trying to put bald cypress in. I'm going to start trying to put eastern red cedar in. There's eastern red buds, all sorts of cool cultivars that have sort of disappeared from the forest, I think due to deers eating them and, carrying on people cutting them down, whatever. But these trees are pretty healthy. They're really young. You can see they've been doing great this year, though. I mean, look at all that new growth. Fantastic. I'm going to put them in the ground, I think this fall, but I need to determine exactly where I want them to be, and I keep changing my mind. Mentioned in the last video were these hollies. You can see they look a little different. I think last time they were probably up to about, you know, that first section of window there. Gave them another really aggressive chop over the winter, and they have come back pretty handsomely. They're pretty weird looking, you know, sticks with small twigs on them, but as they begin to thicken out, we'll gain some shape back. I'm not going to do any like topiary work with these, but I just wanted them to be below the window line, so that we could actually see out, get some good light, and just keep these things kind of controlled. When we moved in, man, they were up above the roof. I mean, they were like absolutely out of control, and there was no growth on these bottom sections. So all this green that you see is bud backs and so forth from this year. It's doing pretty good. So I'm gonna continue along in the front here. Really looks like I just never blow my driveway. This is 2 videos in a row. Front yard's looking like a mess. Maybe that's just the way things are. I put in another front section similar to that paddock that I just showed you, just so I can get some full sun on some of these trees. The tops here are all junipers of varying types. They're all really young trees that I'm just looking to grow out. I have a bunch of them in these pond baskets. I have a couple that are a little farther along, but you know, still in need of some just mass and, you know, staying healthy and everything. And then down below them, I have a collection of dwarf Alberta spruce, as well as a couple of just general, I think these are like emerald arbor vitae over here. I'm just kind of playing around with these trees. None of these are, you know, really heirloom bonsai or anything like that. And, you know, they've got tons of work to do to really become beautiful trees, but they are doing pretty well. So I've had some fun messing with them and just learning how they grow and everything. There's the carcass of a huge section of stilt grass that I weeded a couple of weeks ago, and rather than throwing it straight into the compost where it would just seed and make the compost pile a huge pile of stilt grass, I'm trying to dry it out here so that it starts to break down a little bit, and hopefully we can avoid some of it coming back. Over on this garden, in the spring I added a butterfly bush and some little Russian sages there. The bees and the butterflies absolutely love it here in this front section. That's been really cool. I'm very interested in getting some pollinators back in the area, and so that's kind of step one. Got this dogwood. It's just looking absolutely great this year. It's doing really well. I've been watering it, and I fertilized it pretty heavily in the spring, and it really came back after a little light pruning that I did. Let me see if I can back up and kind of see the form of this thing, because I just think it's absolutely beautiful. Really a lovely tree. Very happy with that. We'll go over to our other little garden. Now I feel like the yuga here, which was present in the last video, is not as thick as it was in September. I was actually really surprised to see how thick it looked. It's got a few more months to go. Like I said, it's only July 25th today, so maybe it'll put on some more mass, but I'm not really sure what's different this year that would cause it to be growing so much more slowly, and none of it flowered, which was odd. I expected it to flower, you know, in April or May, but it never did. But it is spreading, as you can see. So I don't know. We're just kind of watching it. I don't look after this garden every single day. I water it when it's been dry for, you know, a week or so, but for the most part, I'm trying to get it to be self-sufficient. So, you know, whatever's going on is going on. There's my prized Pieris. It bloomed really well this spring and has had a great year. Put on a lot of new growth. It's a little bigger than it was. And I've got it fenced up here so that the deer can't eat the flowers, because they came after it and gave me a little prune, which I was not expecting. But it's okay. Still here. I'm going to turn and we're gonna work our way down the driveway. Last time I did not mention many of these big trees here, but I will this time, because I actually have some sad news. This here, I believe the big trunk is chestnut oak and the small trunk is white oak. And for a variety of reasons, I think this chestnut oak is on its way out. I'll look up to the top here. It's got decent canopy, but I mean, this trunk is just looking so bad. You can see, I think due to the inclusion of the white oak and the chestnut touching each other, we're getting some movement and some rot and some damage up in there. That's one section. And then it's hollow up under that way, which is probably a hazardous situation. And you can just see the bark schlepping off in some areas. It is still mostly solid, but there's enough rot at this point that I think it's gonna have to go. And I'm sad about that because, I mean, look at how cool that root flare is. It is just such a sweet tree. It's probably one of the older ones in the area. And I'm sad that it is looking so rough. We're gonna give it one more season, and I think I'm gonna end up with a really cool looking stump. So that's a bummer, but such is life. Right next to it are a dogwood there and two more white oaks that are okay, but they're so close to the house, and they're both, as you can see, leaning branches over the top. I'm going to take them out, and I'd mentioned this last time, but we're going to try to establish more of an understory in this section with some newer, younger trees of some of the species, like I said, that I want to try to bring back to the area, and then also some bushes. You know, there should be mountain laurels and pieris and native azalea like that over there. There should be examples like that literally all over this hillside. So that's my plan. Here you can kind of see my driveway. There's our big scrap stick pile. Some of our composting goes on back over there. I was having some drainage issues on this hill. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, let me go back up so I can show you the start. When it rains, obviously, we get all sorts of water flying down our driveway here. And, you know, out from the drains behind this wall and all that. And it sort of would collect here and then flow down the hill using that channel and just flood everything. So to fix that, I dug in, and go under the truck here. I dug in a grate there, and then it is Schedule 40 PVC from this grate sort of along there, and then it turns, it comes down here in daylights out of this section, and I'll show you what I did and what my thinking was. I didn't want to have to bury it this whole way because of tree roots and so forth, and frankly digging that deep is just dang hard with no machines, and so I elected to daylight it. There you can see my Schedule 40 exiting, and it goes into just a dry riverbed. There's no plastic lining in this. I didn't really bother to compact anything. I just dug out a trench, lined it with, pumpkin-sized boulders, and put, just like sort of a layer of like golf ball and baseball-sized stones in the bottom. And it has filled up with silt such that it flows really well now. And I have none of the flooding problems that you can see here. But gravel is expensive, and I haven't done the repair to the driveway yet to actually finish this project. But you can see I've got it just kind of gracefully sloping down to here. And then because I like to access this side yard with wheelbarrows, and on occasion I need to drive a vehicle back over this way, I have it go back under the ground into this gigantic gutter piece, and eventually I'm going to have it slope off down the yard to that dry stream bed that we pointed out in the last video, and kind of tie it into the natural creek that we have. So again, look at this mess. You'd think I would prepare better for this, but I'm out here on a whim. So we're gonna go down into the backyard, I think is where we went on the last video, and I will detail some of the changes there. Nothing too dramatic. This section is obviously fully under construction. It's all lumpy and undulating, and there's rocks and so forth, and we had a septic installation sometime right around when I made the last video, so the whole yard got absolutely destroyed. And then I've been doing some clearing and some grading and a lot of thinking and just so forth about what I want to do back here. Along this stream bed is one of the potential locations for one or possibly both of those bald cypress, because they like lots of water, and so I think right next to a stream would be a decent spot. This tulip poplar is kind of on the ropes. It was affected by the septic installation when they came through and cut in. I think they probably damaged a decent amount of the root mass, and it had kind of a tough summer and autumn last year where it had a really thin canopy and it yellowed lots of its leaves early on, and this year it does not look perfect, especially when compared to the tulip poplars that are right next to it. Just in terms of canopy density, you can really see it there with just the amount of daylight that's coming through. But I think it is showing enough signs of recovery for it to not be a total disaster. I made sure to do a decent root flare excavation on this one. It's like damn near 8 feet across. It's a really, really cool tree. And you know, I removed some of the ring that I mistakenly put in a little too high. I want to make sure that I don't change the grade of this area too much, so that whatever the tree got established in is pretty close to what it is now, and it can hopefully start to make some recovery. It has some pretty bad signs of, you know, decay and issues, but it is really putting on some good reaction wood, I think. And I'm watering it, and I'm going to be fertilizing it every once in a while. So, you know, we'll see. It's a strong tree. These tulip poplars are pretty beefy when they're just left alone. And so I'm hoping that it'll make a nice recovery. We'll go down the path a little bit. I have not changed much down this way, but I have done a little bit. I need to get in here and do some midsummer weeding. This is more of that stilt grass. So aggressive. It's really unbelievable. We've had some washouts. The path doesn't look as smooth as it did, but you know, it's still holding up pretty good. The main thing that I changed was adding some bridges. That way I can come out here and cross my stream bed. It runs up a way off the hill, and then it just goes over to the golf course. And it's really seasonal. If it's not raining constantly, this doesn't really seem to hold much water in the summer. It just evaporates pretty quickly. But it is a pretty big ditch, so I wanted to make sure I had some access to get across it here. Oh, look, we have a neighbor. What's up, dude? Nice. This oak tree is fixing to go. Like, you can see those are poison ivy vines on there. Some of them are bigger around than my legs, and it is really, really heinous. I'm pretty affected by poison ivy in my adult years, and so I try to stay away from this tree. I'm gonna walk over here though and show you. This is what happens when you don't mess with the root flare and you allow trunk rot. Look at that cavity. This tree is probably, it could be 60 or maybe even 70 years old. It's easily 100 feet tall, and it is completely structurally ruined. I mean, absolutely destroyed. And so this thing is gonna come down. It's gonna be gnarly. I really hope that I'm here to see and hear it, because, I mean, you know that old saying about trees in the woods and what sort of sounds they make. I bet you this one's gonna be a caterwauling. I'll go back across my bridge. And we'll continue down the path away from the house. I'll show you the entrance and stuff again, just for record. Now that I'm down here filming, I'm really seeing that I need to do some weeding. Like I said, I promise I'll be on that. Here's the second bridge that I did, crossing the same stream, just farther down the hill. This just gives us access to some of the meadowland over there and some of the rest of the woods. Lots of these trees seem like they need my help. I'm gonna get out here and try to do some clearing of some of this dead wood, and you know, try to just make sure it's a little picked up back here so that it's easier to traverse for myself and for all the animals that live in here. There's another shot of the creek bed. Going under the bridge. Look at that, that's a golf ball. We have some of the worst golfers in the entire country, I bet. There's another one. I think I can even see 3 golf balls, so I will come back down here and pick up some golf balls later. These people, you would think they'd never played the game before. All right, walking back up towards the house. The real prize in this video is going to be all of the additions I've made to the bonsai and potted plants collection that I have going on here. A lot of the stuff that we saw in last year's video has done really well and has made great progress, and then there's also some newcomers to the group as well. So let's get up there and go look at some of those things. First stop will be a tree that I've got in training. This guy was like probably 30 feet tall earlier in the year, and it was really close to my tulip poplar here, and generally just not well located. Was never going to be able to get really big because it was going to start fighting with all the trees around it. So I elected to take it out, and I'm trying to grow out a new, boy, now that I'm looking at this, you really can't see in here. Let's see if I can, yeah, just imagine, it's a nice big stump. I know it sounds unlikely, but I'm hoping to grow out a new trunk and really create a cool maple with some great taper there. But being out in the woods, it is just getting jacked up by caterpillars and aphids and all sorts of things. And I'm trying to help protect it as much as I can, but frankly, it's an ongoing battle. But I think I'll probably leave it in the ground for a little bit while I let it put on some more thickness and take full use of the big tree roots that it's got before I try to remove it and put it in a pot. Because I just think it'll come back faster, obviously being uninterrupted like this. The other thing that I added was a path going up around the side of the house back to the front entrance where we saw the paddock with the hinoki cypress, and then also the hollies were there. And then since last year, in order to try to combat the deer, I put up a deer fence just using the metal T-posts, and then I also just built this gate out of some scrap wood that I had. It's not super nice, but so far it has kept the deer out to some degree. So I'll show you everything that's in here. We really outdid ourselves this year. We have some minor food production. We bought some boxes that we're going to use for next year to try to grow veggies and things like that. We really can't do anything in the ground. Most of our yard is either septic field, or what's not septic field is experiencing runoff from the golf courses, which I don't want anywhere near anything that I'm eating. And so our solution is to just get them up off the ground completely and, you know, try to use good water and everything, and we'll see what we can grow. It's really going to be a sunlight issue right here. So my wife has some peppers and some tomatoes down here that we're just experimenting with. All the good stuff's up on the deck, really, but I think just in short, some turmeric, some potatoes, some dead and dying things. We have 2 apple trees that we got this year. This one is not enjoying itself very much, but it will make it. Apples are extremely hardy, and we're going to get it into a better pot probably next year and see what it can do. As you can see, we have 1 apple on that one. And then this tree, same type, doing really good. This thing is just a specimen. I mean, it is bought in the same group as that other apple tree, but it is just so much more significant in its mass. And it is doing a little better. Doesn't have the thickest canopy of all time, and it's in need of some pruning, but that up there is all new growth that it's done as a second flush in the summer. So it had a decent spring, and now it's a decent enough summer for it to start sending out some more growth. And this one also has 1 apple. So that's kind of fun. I've never had apple trees before. I might even be able to tell you what these are, actually. I think it's a tropic sweet. And as you can see, I paid $25 for a tree that's, you know, it's 8 feet tall and quite big around. You see that? Great deal. Check your Home Depots, people. Really, really good stuff. Next to it is a Pieris that I got right around the same time. This might have been in the last video, I'm not sure. Right around the same time as that one in the front, but I did not plant this one in the ground, just so I could get some data off of how they behaved. And this one has done so well and has been so prolific, and I've really come to like these bushes. I'm going to put this one in the ground too. I think it's going to go up in that front paddock with the other one. So, pretty cool. I left the gate open. Story time. Left the gate open last week. Deer got in and absolutely destroyed this hydrangea. Absolutely destroyed it. I mean, as you can see, all of this is new growth from like yesterday, the last couple days. So it's coming back, but I felt like a pretty big dummy there. They didn't get to much, but they really enjoyed getting to that hydrangea. And in fact, I bet you it was that fawn that we saw over there. I think he's the culprit. He doesn't know any better yet. Here's my Kujaku dancing peacock Japanese maple. This thing's doing way better this year than it did last year. Over the winter, I removed it from its pot. It was one of the most root-bound trees I have ever seen in my life. And I was able to do a tremendous amount of work to the root ball and mash it into this cedar box that I built, which has better drainage, all new soil. The roots are all growing in the right directions. I got rid of a lot of girdling roots that were going to become a problem later in the tree's life. And so this thing is ready to become stylish. I'm very excited for this tree. It's really a cool one. Over here next to it, we have some crap in training. Yeah, I mean, this isn't even really worth discussing in my opinion. Those two redwoods were deer victims along with the hydrangea, but they didn't get totally wrecked, and so they're on their way back. There's the ficus that made an appearance in last year's video. It's still doing pretty good. Made it through the winter, which was nice. Over here we have a river birch that I'm training. It's going to eventually be a nice yard tree. I think it's going to go into the ground, but we'll see. I'm just kind of blowing through here real quick. We've got a wisteria. I was going to let it crawl up this column here, but I might move it. I don't know. They're pretty vigorous, so I think I can kind of just do whatever I want with that. A couple of other trees here. This is the sad bench. Everybody on this has had a hard time, and so they're in like one of the more protected areas, kind of out of the sun. And I do come down here and look at this all the time. We have a couple ficuses. This one is making a full recovery, and as you can see, it looks quite a lot better than it. Actually, I was going to say quite a lot better than it did, but I don't know if you've ever seen this tree. Trust me when I say all that new growth. It's good news. Good news for me. We've got a little tea tree here. It's a pretty cool one, I think. We've got an azalea that is in really bad shape but is alive. We've got some cuttings off of pomegranates, another azalea, another pomegranate. I think this and this were part of the same bunch that was like left in the corner of a Walmart, completely, about to die. We got it for $5 and nursed it back a little bit, and I think they're going to make a full recovery. They seem like they're doing pretty good. That there's a blueberry bush. I'm going to try to turn it into a blueberry tree, but we'll see. Pretty cool trunk down in there. A couple little hollies. This holly was growing in the yard earlier this year. Kept getting eaten by deer, so I pulled it out, and unfortunately the entire upper trunk died back. I thought that I did a better job, but the roots were pretty rough. It was growing really weird around other trees' roots, and so it didn't have much fine action. But you can see down in there, it's sending up new shoots from the stump. So we'll turn it into something. Kind of a cool tree, and it's native. I really like playing with native species. I think we'll go upstairs now. Go check out, like I said, kind of my prized collection, and I think that's maybe where we'll end the video for this year. I haven't really done as much to the yard as I would like. Things are expensive. I don't have much time. Wah, wah, wah. So, we'll be making slow progress. That's my solution to keep my fat cat on the deck. I heard him meow. There he is. Hey, buddy. What's up? So, in short, here's some plants. Maybe you guys are interested in this. I'm just going to name them off real quick. We've got some creeping jenny, marigolds, mums. I think these are more peppers, possibly. I hope. I'm going to sound stupid if they're not. Mums. We've got blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, a knockout rose there, more mums, more butterfly bushes, cat. There's that juniper that was in the front yard in the first video. He's doing really good this year too. I've got grapes. I've got, what is this? I think that's a raspberry bush there. We've got some citrus. Most of the stuff we got on like discount at the end of last year from the dead or dying sections of your Walmarts, Home Depots, Lowe's. That's one of my favorite activities, is going and checking on all that crap. Got a nice little pomegranate tree there. We've got another blueberry tree, and then got a little bit of a science project going on here. I use these pools to water my trees. I use them to submerge the trees completely to really make sure that the root ball is getting wet, and also just to offer some humidity to the plants around them. And that seems to work really well. The other people that thought this was working really well is a couple of tree frogs. They pulled up, and look at all them tadpoles in there. I literally think that there might be like 500 in this little pool. I'm gonna just hold the camera still so you can see them moving. Pretty cool stuff. There's some kind of like little gray tree frog. It's a native one. My wife looked it up and she was able to determine what they were, but they make all kinds of racket, and they came up and they used our pool to lay some eggs. I wonder if you'll be able to see. Do you see those kind of black spots right there, like on the surface? That's actually the frog spawn itself, and so those turned into all these tadpoles, and then they came back and they laid a whole nother round. So I mean, we very well could have a couple hundred frogs come busting up out of this here pretty soon, which will be fun, I think. So on with the plant tour. Got petunias and another Russian sage there, and we've got citronella and begonias. Let's see, here we've got some junipers. I think this one made a feature last year. Really happy with the way the shape is coming through on this. I'm starting to get my big boy pad separation going on with some of the branches. This tree's one of my oldest and most refined, and it's really, I just love it. And it's got this little bit of a hitchhiker going on here. I think, what did Emily say this was? Man, you'll have to forgive me. My brain's a little too full of crap. But this is cool. It's just a little volunteer coming out on my juniper there. This is a Dawn redwood bonsai that I've got going on. Pretty handsome fella. He's doing really well this year too. This is the biggest one of the three that I have. You know, I'm just kind of following procedure with it. I think the form and the design of it is already pretty established, so I'm just trying to do right by it. So more marigolds and begonias, some little tomatoes. Here's my, oh yeah, this was in the video last year for sure. It's my mountain laurel. If you'll recall, this main trunk had come all the way out to here and was all dead, and so I bit the bullet and I removed that, and it has finally put out some new growth. You can see those green tips at the end are the second flush this year of growth from this thing, and so I think it's going to flower next year probably, and it seems to be on its way to recovery, which I'm very happy about because it's a cool old tree. Here's the big tomato setup. We've got some super sweet 100s, some sauce tomatoes. I wish I knew more about the names of these specifically. This food and flowers and herbs and things are more of my wife's gamut, but these are doing really well this year. We get probably 100 tomatoes a week off this thing. It's absolutely prolific. And it's, I say this thing, it's 4 different plants that are all kind of just tearing into each other there. Got some herb baskets. Here's my Chinese juniper. I'm not going to move it too much. I'll probably do a separate video on this if I remember to, but this is going to be my signature tree. I can feel it. I love this thing. The shape of it is just absolutely fantastic, and it has had a great couple of years under my tutelage. And here's to many more with that tree. It's right next to a hinoki cypress and a Seca hinoki cypress, which very well could be my, get that marigold out of the way, very well could be my best tree. Look at the movement in that trunk, and the taper from the base there up into the top is just fabulous. And you can see I've got it wired half to hell, trying to get these branches to grow down instead of up, because that will help with the just general aesthetics of the tree. It makes it look like it's actually the age that I'm going for. Another marigold there. Here's a boxwood that unfortunately fell out of its pot midwinter, and I think about half the roots died back, and so it did not have a flush this spring, and I thought it might be toast, but if we get in close, you can see lots of new growth on that, and so it's taking advantage of this second flush in the summer to hopefully put out some new action. And so it too is on its way to recovery, but it's gonna be looking rough for a little bit of time. But I mean, look how cool the trunk is on that. Good taper and good movement. It's a pretty cool tree. Here's another lantana. We have probably 50 of those. I really like them. Some herbs, and then a couple crepe myrtles, and I've got in trading. These were really cheap and in really bad shape about a month ago. So I grabbed them and have nursed them back to some health. I did a midsummer repot on these, and they seem like they are completely fine. They've got new growth and flowers and everything going on, so that's pretty cool. Over here, we've got another big juniper there on the side. It's a pretty good tree. I think that's pretty interesting looking. It's got a lot of work, I think, that needs to be done. But right now I'm just letting it get some strength because I need to get it out of this bowl over the winter, and I don't know how hard that's going to be on the tree, so I'm wanting it to put on as much health as it can. We've got, salvia maybe, and lithidora, and petunias. Look at me go. More petunias. These are drift roses. The bees really like these guys. And I'm trying to bonsai them, actually. I've got them in these like low Italian clay vases or bowls, or whatever you would call the bowls, I guess. And they're doing pretty well. They flower like crazy, and out of all of the trees that I've messed with, these drift roses can take the most work. I mean, I'm talking, 70% removals of both the canopy and the roots, slapping in a new pot, water it, and you've got flowers in a week. It is awesome. I mean, they're so fun to mess with, and a great way to learn just general plant handling techniques, I think, because you can really do a lot wrong and they'll forgive you, which is cool. So I've got a white one and two of this kind of apricot-y color there. And then over here, oh God, I keep going to say the name of the plant and then I forget it. Verbena, maybe? I might be wrong about that. This is kind of a creeping flower. And then there was something called candy tuft in here, but this other one has just completely dominated this pot. So I'll make sure next year to not plant them together. It's just a little experiment. And over here, we've got more citronella and then a couple of maples. I think these two probably would have been featured in last year's video, but I don't remember. They're both Shishigashira Japanese maples. Some people call them lion's head. And they'll put out a really cool orange fall show. And then throughout the year, they have these kind of wrinkly green leaves. They look pretty traditionally like a maple. And they're nice trees. They're pretty jacked up looking right now. You can see lots of scars and cuts and so forth on them, but I'm just trying to get growth to start coming out closer to the trunk, and try to develop some new branches that will help with the scale of the tree that I'm trying to achieve. Both of them are grafted onto just regular Acer palmatum stock, so they're not ever going to be, really, really impressive world-class trees, but I'm going to learn a lot, and hopefully I can take some cuttings throughout their time, and I will be able to get a lot done with these trees. And I just think they look cool. And, nothing says that a grafted tree can't be an aesthetically pleasing piece. It's just not as impressive as a tree on its own roots. So, moving on. This is another Japanese maple. Pretty good. It's pretty healthy this year. It sent out these crazy whips. And I'm taking advantage of them as sacrifice branches because I just want to put some mass on that trunk. I'm not very impressed by a little straight stick. So I'm hoping that it will put on some big mass and we can get some extra height on this tree and maybe it'll turn into something. As of right now, I don't see an obvious design. Although it's getting there. I mean, that certainly looks more characterful than it did when I got started. That is for sure. This one here is a successful Yamadori, or a yard pulled tree, a naturally grown and then pulled tree. This I thought was a maple, and I told about 100 people that it was a maple, and then now I think it might be a sweet gum, which, as you can see, is similar, but there are some key differences. This trunk is quite big down in there, and this tree was growing on the edge of the golf course for years, I think, and every year it would get hit by the bush hog, and so the trunk is extremely scarred, and it has been cut down to less than a foot high probably 10 times throughout its life, judging by the character on the trunk. And so I was able to get it out of the ground and give it, you know, the best spring it's ever had. No weed whackers, and lots of fertilizer and light and water, and so it is just going crazy, putting out some huge leaves, doing really well. Here's another one of those pools that I use. This one's tadpole free for the time being, I think. Yep. But this is a great thing if you guys live in a hot climate and you've got trees that you want to try to water. Often watering just from the top is not enough. The water will find a channel and it'll bypass most of the root ball, and you will not be getting as wet as you think you are. And so dunking them and leaving them in there for a few minutes is a great way to make sure that you're achieving full saturation from the bottom up. Highly recommend doing that if you have a lot of plants. Here's one of the last benches, and then I think I'll be wrapping this up 40-something minutes in. We've got an elm. That's one of my better trees, I think. It's kind of your standard mall's eye look, just, you know, twisted into an S, but it's got some maturity to it, so it's starting to become pretty legit. It's having a pretty decent year this year. All of this growth is actually second flush growth. It's been putting out these big whips. I've already trimmed it once this year, believe it or not, and as you can see, it is way out of whack again. But I'm gonna let it ride. Hopefully it'll put on some extra size this year, and we'll start refining it, I think, next year. And then here's an elm that is the same cultivar that I thought died. As you can see, it lost its entire upper canopy. What had happened is that you can see where the bark kind of delaminated. I saw that happen over the winter. I thought that a creature got to it, and I just left it over on the side of the paddock. I haven't watered it literally since probably January, and I noticed the other day that it had a new sprig. So that is very exciting. We're gonna be able to bring this thing back from literally the dead. I mean, it was I thought fully gone. So I'll have 2 elms, which is pretty cool. And then real quick, I'll go through some of these other ones. This here is a Kingsville boxwood. Probably the smallest little leaves on anything that I've got. The scale is just excellent. I mean, look at the density of that. And it's got a pretty interesting trunk. It's kind of a weird looking tree, but it has a decent shape to it. And it's done pretty well this year. I repotted it in the spring, and it's showing, you know, good signs of health, I think. So I like this little tree. Here I've got just a ficus. I got this at Home Depot last year or something. It's one of those kind of standard tuberous looking ones. Don't really know what I'm doing with this. I'm just kind of letting it grow out. We'll see what happens. Got a couple of azaleas. One day these azaleas are going to be world class. Look at those trunks. Let me come over to this one. This one's, I think, even cooler. Look at that. It's just fabulous. So these are back budding well. They've been on a trimming regimen for the last couple, last year and several months, and they're doing pretty well. So I'm going to let them flower next year, and then they'll get another big hack probably, and then I'll really let them to get into their refinement phase. But all of these trees that you're seeing are pretty much halfway through or just starting their journey. I don't really believe I have anything that's finished, and really no bonsai tree is ever finished. But certainly most of mine are at the very beginning stages, and so they're all getting hacked up and tossed around, and it's a wild time. But I'm having a blast messing with all this. More citronella, more houseplants. This is kind of getting into our shade corner over here. This is a limelight hydrangea I've got potted up. I plan to put this in the yard, but I'm needing it to repair this trunk. It was potted a little deep, and so this spring when I went to repot it, I removed a lot of the soil from literally up to about here, and I noticed that it had damaged the trunk there, and that some of these surface roots had completely died back. But as you can see, it is reacting and rolling back over that wood. And so I'm hoping that it will become structurally sound once more, and I can put it in the ground and have a sweet hydrangea tree growing, because these will actually get pretty tall if they're left to their own devices. Over here, this is going to be mostly monsteras, pothos, some ferns, a couple like aloe and things like that. I'll just kind of do a little twirl, a pirouette, if you will, in here. Kind of see what we're working with. I pulled everything off the railings a couple days ago because it was really windy, and I haven't been back out to move everything yet. It's really easy to water when they're all in groups like this, but I need to spread them back out so that the light is more even on everybody. But yeah, folks, I think that's all. That was 2025's Tour My Yard with your host, Nick Osgood. Hopefully on the next one, 300 and something odd days from now, I'll actually have some real progress that I can show you guys. I'm really wanting to make big strides in my hardscaping process. I have made it to where I can access all of the yard. You can see my path kind of going down to the back, so we can now walk fully around the house in flip-flops without getting eaten by bugs and things. And so now I need to, deal with some drainage issues and some erosion problems, and figure out which trees I'm going to be keeping, where I want to add some, and so forth. I mean, there's so much to do. I really love this type of work, making plans and giving up on plans and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me on this one. If you have, 47 minutes in. And yeah, like I said, I'll probably do some individual videos of some of the trees that I have, so that I can get way more into the weeds, because boy, I could talk for hours about this crap. I'm sure I'm overstaying my welcome as it is, but yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your summer, and we'll see you later.